So hello, and thank you very much for joining us today, Sue and Angus. It's really great to have you here. I'm Hayley, the Head of Communications at New Anglia, and I'm really pleased that you're able to join me today to hear a little more about your experiences of working as a year in industry. So before we start, I'll just let you introduce yourself. Over to you, Sue.
Yes, I'm Sue Falch-Lovesey. I'm Local Liaison Officer and Skills Champion for Vattenfall, and I mainly work on the Norfolk Vanguard and Boreas projects. And I suppose my job is around relationship building, supporting the consenting process, creating opportunities and giving presentations. But my absolute love is the skills and talent element of that, and developing the strategy and working with young people and enabling opportunities for people to come into the industry.
Fantastic, thanks Sue. And Angus.
So, hi Hayley. So my name is Angus Binnian. I'm actually a final year student studying at the University of East Anglia at the moment. I'm studying energy engineering, but I had the opportunity last year to work with Vattenfall within their HVAC and grid management team in the London office. But I've been sort of working alongside Vattenfall for the past few years now, working with Sue to sort of help with the skills stuff, and she's helped me a lot as well.
Fab, thanks. And thanks for joining us, Angus. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your experience so far. So I'll hand over to you, Sue.
Excellent. Well, I thought, Angus and I have known each other for a while now, and I wanted to start, Angus. Let's go back in time. What made you interested in engineering in the first place?
So sort of my interest in engineering sort of started at school. So I loved all the sort of theoretical side and problem side of engineering. But then I also loved the sort of hands-on practical side of things in sort of product design, DT. And sort of engineering was the one subject or area that I could go into where I could apply all of these. So I sort of picked these A levels not with the intention of going into engineering, but obviously coming through the back end of A levels, that was sort of where I could do all these sort of subjects and passions that I've got all at once.
Okay, excellent. So with those passions, you obviously decided UEA was the place to go. Why did you come to choose UEA?
So sort of after my sort of year out of school, sort of after my A levels, I sort of became a lot more aware of the impact that we were having on the climate. And then I found about this course at UEA, so energy engineering, and originally with environmental management. So I wanted to sort of be able to apply my love for engineering to sort of a real life problem that I could sort of go out and do good for.
That just sounds exactly like you, because that's exactly what you've been doing for the last few years with and for Vattenfall. But when you look back on your course now and you're just about at the end of it, what was the most interesting part of your course?
So I think the most interesting part was sort of being able to do a lot of the group projects. So we sort of did a lot of group projects, sort of designing sort of vertical farms, sort of looking into how we can use renewable energy sort of on campus or in different counties across the UK. So I really sort of like that, because you got to work as a group and learn from other people while sort of learning about this new topic and all these new skills.
Oh, yes, I can imagine that. And always collaborating with other people and on real things is quite an exciting part of any programme. Let's think a little bit more about your year in industry now, because it was a little bit new for Vattenfall year in industry. You were the experiment for us, and you were basically our first year in industry student. Would you like to share a little bit of background how we came to work together?
So yeah, we obviously first met probably almost 3 years ago now. So we met at a university run event. So they run this scheme called the Select scheme, where sort of employers come and you have the opportunity to sort of do hot seating interviews, whether it's for sort of graduate roles, internships, placements, or even just sort of get the experience with those interviews. So that's where we first met, and that's where I sort of first learned about Vattenfall and the scale and size that these projects really are. And we then sort of got talking, you sort of gave me the opportunity to sort of shadow one of the project managers.
That's right.
At the South North Sea conference. So there, just kept learning and learning more about the industry, whilst he was sort of having these conversations with all the suppliers. And
I've got a great picture of you doing that. I'll show that in a minute, because that was throwing in at the deep end, really.
And then so we did that, didn't we? And then I think next we had sort of the working sort of as mentors. So Vattenfall did another thing at UEA where we worked as mentors doing this sort of 3D software project at sort of UTCN, which is one of the local colleges, and sort of worked alongside schools. We also got to use that software at the Norfolk Boreas consultations. So we actually got to sort of work for Vattenfall as students, which was also great fun. And then I think we just sort of carried on doing bits and bobs like that across
there was
the
one
next 2
thing,
years.
you were incredibly persistent in a very nice way. You know, you were always there asking for opportunities, and I'd say that is something that could help other people in the future. You know, just get there, be confident, do a little bit at a time, build up your experience, and even if there aren't programs, you know, you can create new opportunities. So and you very much did that right from the beginning, and you've been quite a mentor to other people. So let's think a little bit now. We managed to organise a placement, and like I say, you were our first, so it took a little while. We had to go to HR, we had to sort out processes, didn't we? But what insight would you give about that year that you had with us?
So as I said earlier, I got to work within the HVAC and grid management team. So I worked as an electrical engineer, but sort of within the year I had the opportunity to work across a lot of teams in the company. So at first I sort of began working with the cables team. So we developed new tools, sort of online tools and databases, sort of access and manage all the sort of the technical and quality information side of things. But then, as I moved further into the year, I began to get a lot more opportunities, all sort of piling on at the same time, which was, it was great fun. It teaches you a lot about sort of time management skills. But I got to work on the Norfolk Vanguard project, so a lot of working back in sort of Norfolk and Norwich again, which was great fun. Sort of capturing all the design interfaces. So there's sort of the points where you have two components or parts of the project that meet. So you just need to sort of enable and ensure that they're sort of harmonized, so the project is all sort of running smoothly. But then, I also got the opportunity to work on sort of very sort of futuristic technologies, or less futuristic these days, but breaking edge technologies, sort of such as hydrogen production, and sort of looking into also sort of offshore floating substations. So these kind of things that all sound a bit futuristic right now, but they're really sort of on the cusp of innovation at the moment. I still got the opportunity to work with UC, didn't I? Engaging in sort of local STEM events, and the sort of also internal sort of company events, such as the Vattenfall innovation competition and stuff like that.
So really, it's a very rich experience, isn't it, a year in industry? You have to be very open to go beyond your comfort zone. You will get lots of experience. You had lots of international experience as well. And I'm just going to show up the timeline so people can get a feel for that variety.
Yeah, lovely.
So this is the timeline that we just talked about there briefly. And we, of course, made you into a case study because it was an interesting opportunity that you gave us as well as you had. And here we've got the timeline that you talked about and a couple of pictures. And we made sure that you were out there on LinkedIn as well, didn't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, and the other picture there of you helping out at the Science Festival in Norwich as well. So you got out to see the public too, didn't you?
Yeah. Lots of events, lots of talks, which is also, I think very, very good at an early age to sort of build sort of those people skills and sort of presentation skills, which has definitely helped.
Lovely. Okay, so thank you for that, Angus. And now I want to know a little bit about the international side, because you worked across departments, didn't you? And this international element added quite a characteristic to the first part of your work experience, your year in industry.
Yeah, so I absolutely loved sort of the international aspect of it. So yeah, within my team, I think everyone's spread across London, Hamburg, Colding. So working sort of within a team located all across Europe on all of these different projects gives you sort of very interesting insight into how different people work and sort of what works and what doesn't. But yeah, alongside sort of working with these people, I also got the opportunity to actually sort of travel internationally, which I really loved. So I got to travel to the office in Hamburg, as well as Amsterdam, but also got to travel nationally as well. So I got to go up to the one in Hexham, and also down to our office in Ramsgate as well. So yeah, I do feel quite sad for the students this year who haven't had that opportunity, but yeah, I think hopefully we'll be able to return next year once there's new students.
And Sebastian and Matt this year are 2-year in industry students, because that's what happened. It was such a success, your placement. We really enjoyed having you. There was a decision that we could do 2 placements this year, and they are getting out a little bit, but it's maybe not been quite the same. Just give us a very short insight into how COVID, 7 months into your placement, how did that hit and how did you cope?
So, to be honest, I think at Vattenfall we were quite lucky, quite luckily actually in a good position to move to sort of online working, sort of just because it's such an international team, that everyone already had a lot of these online skills to be able to sort of work online with other people and also work from home. So that was actually an option sort of even prior to the pandemic. Yeah, the one area I did struggle with was it was hard not having just people surrounding you in the office that you could just quickly go and ask for support and help with. And it also meant that a lot of your day would just be packed full of online meetings, which sort of does also sort of drain you. But I think it taught me a lot of good skills of how to sort of work independently and sort of effectively. And sort of as well as how to sort of balance my work life, and I think these skills have definitely been helpful.
And the other thing is, of course, that you're using that same way to keep in contact, because you didn't disappear back into UEA. You've actually been doing a dissertation, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you've been able to keep in contact with the whole of the team. We're going to hear a bit more about that later. Just on the people side, though, Vattenfall, we believe in sort of active, open, positive, with an overview on safety, of course. And we expect basically everybody to be involved in fossil-free futures within 1 generation. What do you think the most important traits are for a young person coming into doing a year in industry with Vattenfall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've picked up on quite a few of them already, but yeah, I think it's important to be able to work and collaborate with as many people as you can. And yeah, I found that whilst at university and also the workplace, that this is sort of the best way to learn. I think this then leads on to sort of being open-minded and good at problem solving, and this always sort of comes from learning from other people and other people's way of working. And then I think just being sort of motivated and having that drive and having that sort of passion for your work and for the industry, I think really sort of makes a big difference.
And beyond that, also, we have something called an employer value proposition, which in Vattenfall is sort of free your superpowers. Now, you did a number of things extra, didn't you, above and beyond your job? Just very briefly go over what those opportunities were.
Yeah, so whilst at Vattenfall, I had the opportunity to meet and some of the other sort of graduates set up Megawatt, which was sort of a young person's committee and group. Well, wasn't directly young people, but we put on events, and we put on a lot of online events during the pandemic, and I think that was a really nice way to get to meet other people. And there was also the Vattenfall innovation competition, which happens every year, so you get the opportunity to come up with an idea and sort of go through all the stages and have training on how to sort of implement your business idea. And I think that was very exciting and great opportunity.
Excellent. Yes, and now you're president, aren't you, of which organisation?
Yeah, so the UA Engineering Society has sort of taken that role this year, which has also been good fun. I think having done those online events has given me a bit of sort of insight on how to try and run them whilst at university too.
Excellent, excellent. So lots of leadership opportunity. So now we're just going to have a little bit of a chat about the graduate recruitment and about being recruited into a year in industry. So what top tips do you have for students thinking about a year in industry to make them help make the very most of that opportunity?
I think, first things first, if you're a student and thinking about doing it, I think just do it is definitely the best thing I've ever done. And I think it's the same if you ask anyone that's sort of done a year in industry. I think career-wise and also sort of building as a person, I think it's university's great, but I think having that experience embedded as well really makes you stand out and really gives you that motivation to sort of keep going forward. I think secondly, you should be sort of open-minded when you're applying to these opportunities. I think you should think more about the company rather than sort of the direct role. As I said earlier, you get the opportunity to work on lots of different projects, and you get the opportunity to sort of steer where your interests are. So I think it's more important that you pick the company rather than the direct role, and then from that you can have these opportunities. And finally, I think apply early, be active, engage with the company and also with just the industry, just to show that you've got this passion and got this interest. And I think to make the most of the year in industry, if you manage to get one, just take every opportunity you can get, really. And even if it's not enjoyable, you'll learn some lessons from there. And also just don't be afraid to ask for help or any questions. I think these are the points where you sort of actually really develop, rather than when it's just plain sailing, really.
There were super top tips. Thank you very much for that, Angus. I think that'll be useful. Other people will find those tips really useful. Thinking about the wind industry in particular and the innovation, the scale, the pace of change, what areas would you suggest students pay particular interest in?
I think first of all, it's amazing how fast the wind industry's grown in the past decade. In past 2 decades, offshore wind was just developing, and now look where we are. But looking forward, it's only sort of going to grow further and get bigger and bigger. As it grows, we're going to have to rely a lot more on technology and data to sort of maintain and monitor the technology, just because of the size and scale of these turbines, substations, everything. We can't physically do it all ourselves. So I think therefore, sort of looking forward, sort of going into IT and data, as well as areas sort of as robotics, and still obviously the pure engineering areas are still very relevant. So electrical engineering, obviously mechanical, everything is still very relevant, and there's just going to be tremendous growth sort of going forward in all these areas.
Oh, I'd agree with you totally in that. And I think from an employer's perspective, I think ethos is important. And you said something about that. Go for the company, understand their ethos, choose your work experience and your year in industry for that reason. And when your ethos matches the ethos of the employer, that's where it can all be quite harmonious and you all have a really enjoyable journey, even through maybe the rougher times with a bit more, overwork or whatever that might happen now and then. I'd also say something about combined competencies as well. From an employer's perspective, yes, you might be a really good engineer, but if you have a language, or if you're an offshore wind turbine technician, but you can do analytics, sort of those areas where you can combine your competencies, that's going to be important for the future. So now we're on to about the last question, and I would like you to be really honest here. Could we have improved the year in industry for you?
Well, I think as the first year in industry, there's always going to be a few areas that could have been improved on. Being the trial is never going to run completely smoothly. I think the main area would have just been for the first sort of few weeks. It's a bit of a struggle. I did feel very out of my depth at first. And I think sort of having a bit more of a student-based sort of onboarding program would have been quite helpful, because obviously it was my first time in a proper workplace, and I'm sure it will be the same for many year in industry students going forward. But I think all things considered, I think it all actually ran fairly smoothly for being a bit of a
Yeah, well, and those tips, because we evaluated it, didn't we? And as an employer, we evaluated it and we thought, how could we improve? And was it cost effective as well? And we found it to be the most beneficial experience. This is why it's really being embedded now. And I would say to other employers there and within the supply chain too, this is a super opportunity to link with universities and colleges and to offer a year in industry. And it's invaluable, I know, for the young person as well. And we have implemented your feedback ideas as well. So we did a really, a very balanced induction for Matt and Seb, and I should be asking them again the question, how can we improve it? So then the very last question, what are your next steps, Angus?
So actually very exciting news. Yesterday, a formal contract came through from Vattenfall. So I'm going to continue working with Vattenfall sort of September this year. So I've been working in the sort of cables team this year, doing my dissertation with them. So I'm actually going to continue working in that team sort of as an integrity engineer. So I'm going to be looking into sort of how we can prevent failures within our sort of existing and future projects. So a lot of, as I picked up on earlier, sort of the monitoring and data and that side of things. But yeah, I'm very excited to start working again and sort of continue this journey after all these years.
Well, we have a lot of colleagues that were so excited that you're going to be coming back. And of course, the fact that you've been working on a dissertation with us and, that some of those subjects now are going to be part of your next core role just shows you, throw yourself into a year in industry, find where you're good and what you enjoy and find what you maybe don't enjoy as much. And that's useful, and see it as a pathway to your future career. You've worked very, very hard, Angus, and you've been a wonderful role model, and we so look forward to working with you in the future in your new role. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Hayley.
Thank you both very much. It's so interesting to hear, and congratulations on your job, Angus. That's the icing on the cake in all ways, but great to hear you sound like you've had a year of amazing opportunities to see things that some people would have a decade in the workplace to be able to experience some of those things, and really give you such a firm grounding to now move into that role. And Sue, brilliant to hear from you as well about an employer investing in young people in a structured way, and not just as a graduate, but actually investing in them while they're still studying. So supporting them through years in industry, through their dissertations, and then into graduate roles. And I think for us, that's a really nice message for local businesses who perhaps don't have a graduate role available, but are there opportunities to engage with these young people while they're studying? There are some fantastic courses across our universities, and are there ways to engage in that way as well and give something back and hopefully bring something into your business? And I think that's a really interesting take, and I'm really pleased as well to hear not only that it's worked for Angus, but that it worked so well. You've taken on 2 young people this year. So that's a huge credit. And I wonder if you could just touch a little on, you mentioned that you'd obviously done the analysis as a business to find out that it's cost beneficial. You know, it actually makes business sense to do this. It's lovely, and Angus has got us habit that actually financially as a business this makes sense. And I wonder if you could just give a little about how you did that process and what you might give other employers as a reason to perhaps use some of these tools that you're talking about.
That's a really interesting question. And it was Angus and I that decided to do this on that first year. We thought, if this has got to work, it's definitely going to work on a personal level and the impact it can have on a student if we provide a good experience. But actually, if we're really to gear up, we need to make sure that it's financially viable as well. And so we looked at Angus's time and where it was spent. And if we were to do that work, what would we have to pay for? And we came up to a broad consensus that it was about 9 months in was the break-even point. So after that, then actually, but we didn't then think, oh, well, that's good, we've saved money. It wasn't about that. Then it was about, right, let's invest in this young person. What extra opportunities do they need as part of their year in industry? So it was one of those things where we thought, yeah, it was just this happy win-win, really.
Great, and that's brilliant. It has to be a viable business and very sensible business decision. These things, or everything costs money, and certainly supporting staff through what's been a very challenging year has been difficult for everyone. So that's great to hear that you've managed to look at that analytically and show that it's really beneficial to businesses.
I suppose the hardest bit is for a business like us. We're now just about to start the next interview process for the next 2, so it's sort of continuous. And it's getting everything in order in such a big business in time to give graduates enough choice and time to think about their route. And I would say that just keep your eye open for a year in industry, right to the last moment. Don't close off any doors for yourself, because sometimes businesses can't get it all in by some sort of early deadline. And those opportunities are still worth looking at.
That's great. So that's a great tip as well for young people. And there's a whole world of opportunities out there. And sometimes, a bit like you said about Angus, you've got to put yourself out there, engage, be active, be the one that they notice and that they want, because at the end of the day, that's it's your future, and it's paid off, and you've shown that really works.
The other thing we're really, really keen on, of course, is diversity and inclusion. And when we go to the universities, and that might be UEA or University of Suffolk, the universities, we depend on their ability to try and create a broad pool of young people. And from that pool, everybody has the same chance. And the industry now is very keen on our diverse workforce that reflects the community in which we serve and operate, and makes the industry truly diverse. We need to be inclusive, we need to be welcoming, because actually we've got a lot of engineers and other people that we need to attract into the industry. It's not good enough that it's only seen as a sector for a certain part of society.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Sue, and I think a lot of sectors will be looking at similar things. And talking a little more widely about the sector before we finish off today, this is one of our region's key sectors. It's huge, and it's going to be bigger and bigger. The opportunities are there. We've heard a little about, Angus, about your understanding of the opportunities there for yourself in engineering and how you can grow that. And you talked a little about some of the innovation and technology that you've seen coming to the fore as well, which will be really interesting. So just a little about, I suppose, those opportunities in that sector for its growth, and for it's important for our whole region and for young people to know about those fantastic opportunities.
Yeah, so some data, I've been collecting some data for you, and I have to look at my screen here a little bit as well. But the context is, it's the tightest labour market in 40 years. That's from the Aura report. And there's a shortage of engineering graduates of about 20,000 a year. And only 12% of those professional engineers are women. So actually, what we're saying with the growth of the industry, and I'll talk a little bit about that and how much it's going to grow, this is a perfect time to get into the industry. In and it's in all its shapes and sizes, because it's so much more than, say, a wind turbine technician. You've got your HR, you've got project managers, you've got your environmental consenting team, and of course you've got the growth, the target of 40 gigawatts by 2030. That's huge growth, and in this region, that's going to have a big impact.
Thank you, Sue. I agree. There are incredible opportunities coming up, and great to see them coming forward and involving our universities in that as well, to make sure that we keep those skills locally, that we're encouraging people to train locally and do those great jobs. Absolutely brilliant. So nice to hear from both of you on such a positive outcome from for both of you, from a business and for you personally, Angus, as well. It's really nice to hear that you've come to find your way, and I wish you every success in at the end of your studies, and then going forward, I'm sure Vattenfall will look after you very well.
Perfect. Yeah, no, thank you very much for having us, Hayley. And yeah, thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Hayley. Thanks, Angus.